guys, we have completed our objective for math. So I'm just going to go ahead and check mark that. We're moving on to English language arts. Now we're going to be doing a couple of things today. I'm going to be adding some writing lessons for a writing project that will be due on Friday. But I want us to focus on two main things today. One of the main things is that I can describe the difference between consumers and producers. So we're going to be reading about consumers and producers for today, and we are going to be using main idea to help us read today. So our second objective is I can find important facts, and remember that word facts, we've talked about it before, they're real, right? I can find important facts in the reading. How are we going to be able to do that? So we're going to be using a lot of the main idea things that we discussed yesterday. So remember, good readers always identify the main idea. What's the main idea? We talked about this yesterday, is what the text is mostly about. Okay, so we talked about all the different ways that we can find main idea. We can look at titles, we can look at headings, we can look at pictures, we can look at that first and last sentence in a paragraph, and we can also look for clue words that keep on repeating and repeating. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to be using an ice cream cone. I know, right? We're thinking about summer already. We're going to be using the ice cream cone here organizer to help us organize a few important things and our main idea in the reading for today. So our reading for today is going to focus on consumers and producers because that is what we're learning for social studies, right? So we're going to be reading about consumers and producers, and we're going to use all that information to find our main idea, which was that big chunk of my cone right here, and then all of my scoops of ice cream are details. Why do I need details? Well, if you're telling someone that your main idea is one thing, you need to support it, right? If I ask you, how do you know that that's your main idea? Well, you're gonna say, I came up with all these 3 details from my reading, Miss Aguilera, that tells me that this is my main idea, right? It supports it, okay? And it also describes or explains your main idea. I keep asking you to remember, think back of your hamburger, right? We had your topic, and then you had all those ingredients were your details, right? You wanted support, things that it described or explained it. So that's what our 3 scoops are going to be about, okay? We're going to get started with our reading, and then you're going to follow me and watch as I do the reading with you, how we together come up with our details and our main idea from the reading today, and then you're going to do it on your own, okay? Here we go. Consumers and producers. What is a producer? A producer is a person who makes goods or provides services. Think of that again. A producer is a person who makes goods and provides services. And remember, goods, we talked about this a little bit earlier last week. Goods are anything that we can touch. They're things. We usually get them at the store. We can also wear goods, like clothing would be a good, or provide services. And we also talked about services, guys. Services are all those things and all that work that's done for people, like a barber who cuts your hair, or a baker who sells, who makes, desserts and sells them, okay? Here we go. Farmers, taxi drivers, home builders, bakers, photographers, and hairstylists are all producers. Some goods are things that we must have to survive. These are called needs. Examples of needs are food, water, shelter, and clothing. Things we would like to have but we do not need to stay alive are called wants, such as candy, toys, and cool boots that are all wants. Right now I'm going to stop right there, and I want you to think about what I just read. Remember, monitor your reading. What are some examples of services, of producers? what are some examples of producers? And they gave us a few examples. If you said farmers, taxi drivers, home builders, bakers, photographers, hairstylists, you are right? They're all producers. Now, some producers make goods or provide services just for their town, while others send goods to be sold in other states or countries. Where were your shoes made? Think about that. What about your favorite toy? Look to see where your goods were produced. You might be surprised. Now, a lot of times, guys, our goods do get delivered here, right, from other countries. So a lot of times, if they do come from other countries, they're gonna say that. So it's good to take a look at some of the goods that you have at home, right? Some are made in China, and it specifically says that. So it's always good to take a look at where your goods are from. All right. After we've read what is a producer, now we're gonna move on. What is a consumer? A consumer is a person who buys and uses goods and services. Does that sound like someone? Yep, it sounds like you and me and everyone around us, right? They're people who buy and use goods and services. Anytime you buy a toy at the store, you are a consumer. When you order food at a restaurant, you are a consumer. When you get your haircut, you are a consumer. Consumers pay money to producers for goods and services. Some goods that consumers buy are needs. Buying food at the grocery store is buying a need. Buying a video game at the store is buying a want. So a lot of information here, okay? I want us to discuss with someone around you. What is a consumer and what is a producer? And I give you a couple of seconds to discuss that. So if you said that a producer is a person who makes goods or provides services, you are correct, right? Produce, that means they're making something, right? They make goods or provide services. And a consumer is a person who buys or uses the goods. Now, in our reading kept talking about consumers and producers. Consumers and producers. Words that get used repetitively. What words get used repetitively? Consumers and producers. It was in our title, consumers and producers, right? Now, it says sometimes the main idea is written in the first or last sentence. Well, they talked about a producer at the top and a consumer at the bottom. So, knowing what I just read, help me think, what's the main idea of my text? What is this reading talking about the whole time? Consumers and producers, right? So my main idea is the difference, because it talked about producers at the top, it talked about consumers at the bottom. So it was telling me what the difference was, right? A producer is not the same thing as a consumer, right? And vice versa. So it was telling me everything that I needed to know about a producer, everything that I needed to know about a consumer. So the main gist of this paragraph was to tell me the difference between consumers and producers. Now that I've gotten my main idea, my main cone, which is the first thing I need, I'm gonna go back into my reading and find some details, okay? What are cool details that we need to include? Well, we need to talk about consumers and producers. So a good detail that I could get from my reading is to define the both of them. What is a producer? So I'm gonna say, in the reading, I learned that a producer is a person who makes goods or provides services. Period. Now, that was one of my details. Now I'm going to go back to the reading and find another one. We already described what a producer was, right? Our main idea says consumers and producers. I gave my readers a detail about producers. Now I'm going to go back and find something that I can tell them about consumers. A consumer, and you know this, a consumer is a person who buys and uses goods and services, right? This is you, someone who buys and uses goods and services. Now, I have two details, right? In one of my details, I describe what is a producer. And my second detail, I describe what is my consumer. And all of these details do match my main idea, which I said the difference between consumers and producers, right? So I am writing about what I said my main idea was about. Now, for my last detail, I want to say consumers pay money to producers for goods. So now here I'm talking about both of them. So consumers, you pay. So consumers pay producers for goods or services, right? And we know that when we consume, we are buying things that the producers are creating. So then this is how we created our snow cone, okay? Remember, my cone, my ice cream cone, has the main idea in the cone, which is what holds everything up, okay? Without the main idea, you can't put those details in. So that main idea is going to be your cone. Then you have your three very important details that talk all about your main idea, right? They have nothing to do with something totally different than what I just said my main idea was, okay? Remember, your details need to support your main idea. Right now, we read all about consumers and producers and the difference between the two of them. That's why that was my main idea. Out of this reading, I took out all of the important details that backed up my main idea and supported it. So that's how I was able to fill in the 3 scoops, okay? Now, you're not going to be using an ice cream cone today, but you will be using one tomorrow. I just wanted to be able to show you guys how we are able to create and find your main idea and your details using an ice cream cone, okay? We did talk about consumers and producers, which was our objective for today, right? Finding the difference between the two of them, right? What's a consumer? What's a producer? Very different to one another, right? However, can we be consumers if we don't have any producers? I don't think so. We can't buy something that hasn't been made or a service that's not being performed, okay? So remember, we need both of them together. We need someone to buy those and we need someone to make them, okay? Which is very important. They need each other. All right, so now we're gonna be moving on to independent practice. This is where you go into Epic, read a book on the same thing, consumers and producers, and you yourself go and find those important facts that are going to help you learn more about consumers and producers. All right, guys? Good luck.